I hate my daughter. I'm 27 and I've had a FWB situation with a guy I went to college with. Let's call him Mark. We were both young and not ready for a relationship. Then I got pregnant. I told Mark about it since I wanted to discuss our options: abortion, adoption, or even giving him custody if he wanted to. I never wanted kids, so I'd be fine with any compromise. However, Mark didn't take it well. I remember him insisting we could make it work, especially since we were both in our last year-old college. He wanted to get married and for us to be a family. I refused. He got his family involved. They called and texted me all the time, even showing up at my part-time job. I know I have no one to blame but myself, but I gave up. I had too many things going on at that time, like the loss of my mother, the stress with the rest of the family, and some stuff going on with my best friend that I won't get into. I remember feeling horrible, but I relented and agreed to keep the baby. Although I still refused to get married to Mark. Now we have a 5-year-old daughter together. I'm a mess. I never wanted kids, and although I'm trying, I can't feel any motherly love for her. What makes it worse is that she's genuinely a good kid. She doesn't throw much tantrums, she's always kind, and she doesn't expect much. I feel guilty for hating her. I feel bad all the time. I only get to have her on the weekends, and Mark has her every other day. But that doesn't make me feel better. She talks about wanting to see me and her dad together, but I just can't. I screamed at her once when she drew a little picture of me and Mark holding hands. I apologized after, but I still felt so guilty. I don't know what I'm doing. I just needed to write everything down and get it off my chest. I know I'm a bad mother. I know it. But I don't know how to be better. I don't even know if I want to be better. I just want to give up my parental rights. But even the thought makes me feel even worse. I'm stuck in a hell of my own making. I know I should have fought harder and probably just abort her. Damn me for being weak, I guess. Update. I'll call my daughter Abby. I ended up telling Mark about my desire to change the custody arrangement and maybe even removing my parental rights. Many people here agreed that it's the best choice, both for me and for Abby. He didn't take it well and actually texted me about it through the week. He insisted we could work out whatever was bothering me. We agreed a while ago that texting is okay, but calls are for emergencies only. So when he called me on Friday evening and pleaded with me to come see Abby, I agreed. This is what I really need to talk about. I've seen Abby cry before, but this was something else. She had a complete meltdown, screaming and crying once I got there. She just clung to my leg and screamed at me not to leave her. Why did I want to leave her? What did she do wrong? I cried. I was honestly horrified with how badly she reacted. Mark's mom ended up telling Abby that I was planning on leaving her and she's not going to go to my house this weekend. I had to take Abby to my place sooner than expected, and Mark actually spent the night over as well. He said he's too concerned with Abby and with me to leave us alone. I'm completely lost. Even with the way I said that I want to give up my parental rights, I just can't do it now. The image of Abby crying and pleading with me not to leave is just stuck in my mind. I feel hopeless about the entire situation. Currently, I'm laying with Abby on the couch and she's watching TV. She hasn't really left my side since yesterday. I'm used to her pointing at the TV while talking about her favorite characters of whatever cartoon is on. Right now, she's just laying by my side and staying quiet. I can hear Mark moving around in the kitchen. He called in sick to work and said he's staying here for the weekend. I have no idea what to do. And I'm sorry, but I no longer want to leave Abby. That's not an option anymore. Update 2. For anyone wondering how Abby is doing, she seems to be doing okay. She's still a little clingy with me, but she's back to her happy self. We've been observing her behavior closely, and Mark decided that a therapist isn't needed. I'm not sure I agree with that, but Abby really does seem to be feeling all right. And for anyone wondering about Mark's mom, she's had no contact with Abby since what happened, though Mark has been talking with her. I haven't actually mentioned it before since I didn't think it was important, but back in college, we were both using protection, with me also being on birth control. I do believe the pregnancy was a genuine accident. We haven't had too much contact, though. We would mostly talk about Abby when we did text. Still, the past month had been more than weird for me. We've been talking more. He apologized to me a lot. I can't tell if those apologies were real or not. My best friend told me to keep Mark at arm's length, but it's been hard to do that with him coming over more often on the weekends to spend time with Abby and me. He's been inviting me to his home too, and I went a few times when Abby really begged me to. I'm trying to make sense of the situation, but it's hard. I'll be having my first therapy session tomorrow, so there's that too.
My 36F husband, 52 mem, asked me to flash some roadworkers. I did, and then he got mad and pushed me out of the car next to them. How do we move on from this? Been together 10 years, married for 6. The last 2 or 3 years, he started to show less and less interest in me. He does subscribe to a couple of OnlyFans accounts, which I'm not bothered about as it's no different to porn, so I know he still has sexual urges. I've tried talking to him a couple of times about this and told him I'm getting bored and frustrated, And he knows I'm willing to try anything sexual, so if there's anything he wants to do to get him motivated, I'll try it. He just says, duly noted, and carries on with his day, which is frustrating. A few nights ago, we had friends round for tea, and we got onto the subject of commutes and roadworks, with them saying how their commute has more than doubled due to a road they use having roadworks. Carol, the wife of the couple, then says, "We've found a way to make it more entertaining though, haven't we?" to her husband, and they both started laughing. She then tells us that the roadworks are about 3 miles long, with the groups of workers spread out to maybe 7 or 8 groups, and they are normally going 10 to 15 km/h. So when they get near one of the groups, he beeps, and she flashes them, and they all cheer. I couldn't believe it as they seem so straight-laced. That night when they left, my husband was saying how brave it is of them and that we should do it the next morning. I asked if he's sure. This is a man who didn't like when I posted a bikini pic on Facebook, and he said yes. And we even had sex that night for the first time in months, and he initiated for the first time in years. The next morning, we were both of work, and as soon as he woke up, he mentioned me flashing. I asked if he's sure, and it wasn't just horny talk, and what if the men don't want to be flashed? He said he's sure, and all men want to be flashed. We drive to the road, and we see a group of workmen, and my husband gets all giddy and says, "Are you ready?" I say yes, and he says, "Now," and beeps his horn, and I lift my top up, and they all cheer. We are going about 10 mph when suddenly he slams his brakes on and tells me to get out. I was in shock. His face is red with anger, and he's shouting, "Get out, you fucking slag!" I start crying, and he's leaning over me, opening my car door, and then takes off my seatbelt and starts pushing me out. The cars behind are beeping as he's stopped traffic, and he's yelling at the top of his voice. By now, the workers have heard the commotion, and 2 of them are rushing over to help. I turn to look at them, and I do. He pushes me really hard, and the top half of my body falls out the car, and I put my hands down. One of the workers is screaming at my husband and starts trying to open his door. The other worker is by me and quickly drags me out the car. He told me afterwards he saw my husband put the car in gear and thought he was going to drive off with me hanging out the car. My husband just left me. I was still only wearing a vest top and pajama shorts and my slippers, as he'd wanted to rush out and do this. My phone was in his car, and I didn't have any house keys. One of the workers took his jacket off and wrapped me up in that. They took me to a cabin that was their canteen and put the heater on and made me a cup of tea. I was so embarrassed. This lot had seen my boobs and then seen me getting abused and then fell out of a car and then rescued me all in the space of 30 seconds. I kept apologizing to them and said it was his idea, but they said it's okay and it happens a few times a day and they are used to it. But I think they were just trying to make me feel better. They were laughing and joking with me and were all so sweet and funny. They asked if I wanted to ring anyone, but I don't know anyone's number apart from work, and I didn't want them picking me up wearing next to nothing from a building site. I asked if I could just ring a taxi, but they said I can't get in a taxi dressed how I am. The man I'm assuming was their team leader told one of them to drive me wherever I wanted to go, so I asked if I could go to my mom's about 5 miles away. They gave me some spare work boots to walk across the mud to the van, and 2 of them drove me to my mom's, and they were really sweet and making sure I was okay, and even walked me to the front door. When my mom answered, I was hysterical and crying, and they told her me and my husband had an argument, and he left me by the side of the road. My mom offered them a drink, and I tired to give them their coat and boots back, but they said it's okay. I told my mom we were driving to McDonald's and got in an argument. I didn't tell her about the pushing or anything. She drove me home and let me in with a spare key she has. I packed some things and went back to my mom's. My husband had been home as my phone was on the table. In the 5 days since he's been ringing me nonstop saying he's sorry and he don't know what came over him. He said he heard someone shout "nice pair," and it made him angry. My friends are saying leave. His are obviously telling me to give him another chance. I'm 50-50, but if I do stay, I'm going to insist on couples counseling for us both and sex therapy either for him or both of us. He says he doesn't want to involve other people in the relationship. It feels silly to throw it all away over a few seconds of madness, and I should have just said no when he asked me to flash, as I know he's quite insecure. I was blinded by finally getting some sex and attention from him, and thought I could get more. I took the workers their jacket and boots back, and also made them 2 cakes, and bought them 1,000 bags of Yorkshire tea as a thank you. Update. Something happened last week and I've decided I don't want to be with him anymore. It did involve physical abuse and I have photos and witnesses, but I don't want to go down the route of involving the police. I bought the house in 2012. It's in my name. He moved in 2015. I've always paid the mortgage as he said he wasn't putting money into something he doesn't own, which is fair enough. We split all other bills 50-50. Any house modifications I have are for with proof, but maintenance on the house we split 50-50. I will eventually talk to a solicitor, but I just wanted to know exactly where I stand before doing so. Google doesn't really help, as some places say he has a right to half, others say he doesn't, as it predates the marriage. No prenup or anything was ever signed. Update 2. I spoke to the workers beforehand who said they'd back me up. They arrested my husband and then released him on bail, but told him he couldn't stay at my house, so he's gone to his mum's. After the argument, he told all our friends that I had cheated. I hadn't wanted to admit to people that I had flashed, but I felt like the tide was really turning against me, and a lot of people were believing his lies. So I wrote a long message with a description of exactly what happened, plus pictures of my injuries, including scrapes and bruises, plus screenshots of messages he sent admitting he asked me to flash and admitting he hit me, although he did blame me, saying if I just got out like he asked, he wouldn't have had to do that. A few people apologized. Most didn't. But I don't care anymore. I'm back home and he has to answer bail in a couple of months. The police don't sound confident they can get a conviction, but maybe that's how they are supposed to sound. I've spoke a little bit to a lawyer, but I can't really afford anything at the minute in that way. Been a sad few weeks, but an eye-opener. And I don't feel any guilt for getting the police involved or telling people what happened. Just working and keeping myself busy at the moment.
My 26F mom, 43F, started dating my biological father, 45M, after he's been absent from my life for 26 years. My mom had me 9 days after her 17th birthday. My dad was 19. They were not, and have never, been in a relationship. My mom eventually started dating another guy, who she got engaged to when she was 19. He sadly committed suicide a week before they were supposed to get married. This obviously had an emotional toll on my mother, and kicked off a 16-year addiction to pills and IV drugs. My grandparents, her mom and dad, legally adopted me when I was 2 and raised me as their own. They are both insanely good people. Words aren't enough to express everything they did for me, and how much I love and adore them. Mom was very in and out of the picture, would disappear for months at a time, randomly show up to my grandparents to visit me, when in reality she was asking them for money or something else she needed, then would disappear again. In and out of jail, married 4 times, all to very abusive men, all the works. I'm happy to say she did eventually overcome her addiction, and has gotten a master's degree, and is working on her doctorate. She's an addictions counselor now. We have mended our relationship and speak every day, though I travel for work, so seeing each other in person is more difficult. My dad has never had much to do with me. I met him for the first time when I was in 3rd grade when my mom went behind my grandparents' back and took me to his house. I've never seen him again. When I was about 16 or 17, I found him and was able to obtain to his phone number. We did text occasionally back and forth until I was 21. It was mostly me reaching out, and we never talked about anything personal. I tried to get to know him, asked him to go to lunch, invited him to my high school graduation, etc., and he always had an excuse. We never met in person. I invited him to my college graduation, which he said he would come to. The day before, I asked him if he was still coming, and he blew up on me, told me he wasn't coming. He didn't consider me his daughter, etc. I blocked him and haven't spoken to him since. Obviously, we had a very surface-level relationship. If I saw him in a crowded room, I would have no idea who he was. He's a stranger to me. He has 2 other sons by another woman he was with who he actually raised. Fast forward to a month ago. My mom leaves her current husband, who is also incredibly physically and mentally abusive. She has been with him for 14 years. She's left him multiple times before, but always goes back. This time she seemed to be sticking to it. She moved back to our hometown. Her and my stepdad moved to Florida when I was 18 and got a job. She eventually ends up telling me she's living with, and having a full-on relationship with, my biological dad. She asked me to not tell my grandparents yet. A couple of days ago, she ends up telling them. Neither are very happy about it, obviously. My grandpa really despises this man. He's had to see the emotional fallout over the years he's caused me and wants nothing to do with him. My grandma didn't seem happy either, but my mom told me she's went over there and visited with him and his sons. My dad's son just had a baby, and she wanted to visit with him. My mom is adamant that she loves him and always has and always will, which is coming out of left field for me. She's always shit-talked him into the ground in the past, and like I said before, they never dated, as far as I'm aware. She's been shoving him down my throat lately, always talking about how great he is, telling me I need to message him and talk to him, how he's sorry for not being in my life, how they've both talked about how bad they were to me and how they're full of regret. I feel like a terrible person for being upset about it. I'm so glad my mom is getting away from my stepdad. I'm so thankful she made it out alive and seems to be happy. I feel extremely betrayed though. Out of the billions of people on this planet, she goes to that motherfucker. I feel kind of betrayed by my grandma too. She lied to me about seeing him, which isn't normal for her. I don't understand why everyone is being so accepting, minus my granddad. I feel bad for it, but I can't help to feel pissed off and hurt. Update. 1 year later, he has 2 other children he was around for. They ended up getting married this past June. My mom did try to force a relationship with him and his 2 kids on me prior to their marriage. I moved to the West Coast for work, and decided to go no contact for a couple of months to think things through and determine how I really felt. In the midst of no contact, I found out they got married. I did talk to my mom and laid out all my feelings about her and the situation shortly after that. She basically gaslighted me and told me I need to forgive and forget. Needless to say, I no longer speak to her or have anything to do with any of them. I'm content with this decision. I realized I am much happier without her in my life, have much less stress and anxiety this way.
Pawn shop wants merch back. I went into a pawn shop with the intention of just looking. I found a set of drums that they had stacked up in a corner for sale. I asked the clerk how much they wanted for them. She was more interested in her phone. She barely acknowledged me and said, "Look at the tag on top." There was a single tag on the snare drum on top that read, $250 goes with the green drums. The drums I'm speaking of are green. Now I knew this was a great deal. Frankly, the deal of a lifetime. So I asked, "Ma'am, are you sure?" She kind of barked back and said, "That's the price. Do you want it or not?" I mentioned how great of a deal it was, and her only response was, "Great." I paid for it, took my receipt, loaded it up, and left. She was probably the rudest salesperson I'd ever met, but whatever. Tonight I get a call from the owner. I don't know how they got my number, but my best guess is from my card or from maybe something I had pawned years ago, but he was extremely insistent that I was in the wrong. He said, "You need to bring that back. You knew they were worth more. You knew it and you let her go with it. That was the price for just that one drum." This is true. I knew it was a stellar deal. I, however, did not try to do anything dishonest. I asked twice. She insisted on it and even got me a platform cart so I could load them. I figured they were taking up a lot of space and maybe just wanted them gone. The snare drum even said, "Goes with the green drums." I wasn't trying to be dishonest. The receipt says, description, green drum set. The owner now says he intends to call the police and possibly sue me, and I really don't want any trouble. I also don't want to return it because I genuinely feel like I didn't do anything wrong. The owner has called me about 50 times and I finally blocked the number. It's been making me extremely anxious. The drums value new is around $2,000. Should I return them? Should I get an attorney?
Girlfriend, F27, is wanting me, M31, to attend her work's corporate party as a plus, and I don't feel comfortable with my M31 girlfriend, F27, of roughly 2.5 years' work, are planning their usual annual company Christmas party, where employees and their partners or spouses, optional but supposedly preferred, are invited to attend for an overnight stay, meal, party, open bar, etc. I've never been to the previous events due to a work commitment last year, and the year prior, we were still quite a new couple. She works for a large nationwide recruitment agency, and each year a different city's office hosts. And those not from that region normally stay in a fancy hotel booked by the company. They are in the process of confirming the total number of guests, and she'd like me to go. As a heads up, we are very open and communicate well, I'd say. She's told me that prior to us dating, on her first work's Christmas party, after a few drinks, she went to an after party in one of the guys' hotel rooms and engaged in a threesome with two dudes from her office as a bit of a bucket list experience. After thinking about it, Love said to her, "I'd rather I give it a miss, but I'm totally happy for her to go on her own." She's told me it's important to her from a career perspective, as it's good for her image, get to meet in person with people she works with from other regions and can socialize with the senior management, and that nearly everyone's from works partners attend. We have since been arguing all last week, and I have been accused of not supporting her career, as I've never attended her previous work events, being immature and shaming her. I really honestly don't think any of this. It was something she'd done prior to meeting me. We do hold differing views on sex, as for me it has always been something special, where she views sex as something that's just a bit of fun. This isn't an issue, and has actually been good for us, as we've learned a lot from each other. I'm even comfortable with the fact she still works alongside these two guys. I know she has had a lot more sexual partners than me, but as she has always viewed casual sex when she was single as a bit of fun, and I know deep down it wasn't meaningful. Accepting a sexual history is one thing. People are entitled to a sex life. I'm cool with that. The past is the past, but this feels different as it feels like the present and socializing at the same party with my girlfriend and the two males that have been intimate with her is a different task. It makes me awkward, uncomfortable. I thought it would be easier to say I'm not attending. The thought of having to make small talk and share a table for a meal with these guys is difficult. For context, we are in a good place, rarely argue, and have recently been talking about marriage, having kids, etc., and really have a great relationship all around and don't want to do anything that would harm her out relationship or career. Update. Before we started dating, I knew due to being part of an overlapping social group, she had a sex-positive outlook, and she was open about the fact that she had been with around 50 guys. That was never an issue for me. We may well have different experiences, as I've only been with 3 long-term GFS prior, but it wasn't something that held me back from perusing and starting a relationship with her in the first place. What made this situation feel different was that I'd be in a room, possibly sat at the same table for dinner, with people who are still actively referencing that past experience. I've never had to deal with that face to face, and the idea of those same people making jokes with me in the room or even about me made the situation feel more socially uncomfortable. So, after some deep conversations and listening to each other's point of view, my girlfriend helped me understand her perspective more clearly. She expressed that being the only person from her office without a partner would make her feel awkward and isolated, and possibly lacking social support during the event. She was also surprised and somewhat upset when I changed my mind about attending, as it raised a small doubt that I was viewing this with the idea of shaming her and not showing support to her career. To help with my point of view, most other people's partners would be there, so any remarks or jokes would be either subtle or unlikely, and she happily shut anything down if it went too far, if it makes me uncomfortable. We also had a constructive conversation around her views on sex positivity. Her confidence in celebrating that part of her life has helped me see things differently. She reassured me that any teasing and nicknames at work don't bother her. So why should it bother me? Any terms like SLUT should not be seen as insults. Instead, something to be proud of and offer her an ability to own and reclaim a woman's sexuality without shame, especially since men involved in stuff like that are held to a different standard than her. If she can be proud of herself while confidently standing by her choices, then I thought I should wholeheartedly support that as well. Anyway, I've decided to go to the event. I still have some reservations, but I realize it's important to show my support in her work life. If that kind of stuff doesn't bother her, then why should it bother me? I trust her, and if she's comfortable in that environment, I want to be too. At the end of the day, I'm happy of how open and unapologetic she is about her views, and I don't want to let my discomfort or something as trivial as the possibility of being the target of jokes for an evening get in the way of supporting her fully. We've had some great discussions about careers, sex, relationships, women, and society that have only made our relationship stronger.
AIO to my partner's one-time mistake and not giving him a second chance. I, F26, met my partner, M39, 6 years ago when I first moved to Canada from Germany. We moved in together within 1 year. We work in different fields, but we make about the same amount annually. I found out I got pregnant in July. When I told him, he got frustrated. I told him that I repeatedly reminded him about medication interactions, and doctor advised using condoms while I'm on this medication, and he refused. Eventually, he said he is happy to be a dad and supports me. We got invited to a destination wedding in Mexico, his friend's wedding. I told him my doctor advised me not to travel as I have been very sick lately, hospitalized a few times, so I can't go. He got upset and said he really wanted to go. I got tired of hearing his grumpiness, so I said I would be fine. It's just a week, so it's okay. Just go. I talked to his mom, and she said she would drive me to the hospital again if I need to while he will be away. Wedding was last Tuesday. He left on Saturday evening. He sent some pictures to me on the day. He said he missed me and how he wished I was there, which I said, hopefully we can do more trips when the baby is here. Then he was quiet on Wednesday. I got worried, so I texted his friend. He replied, "Oh yay, he is fine. I'll tell him to text you." Still nothing. On Friday evening, so last night, he called me. I asked him what was going on. I was worrying sick. He asked how I was doing, if I needed help. I said I'm good, luckily no, I have been fine. He then said he needed to talk to me. He made a horrible drunken mistake. He hooked up with one of the bridesmaids, bride's sister, and brought her to his room. But in the morning, he realized what a fool he was. So he told her to leave. He said, "I made a mistake, but you have to realize if you were with me, this wouldn't have happened. I was drunk and lonely. It was a one-time thing and meant nothing. I felt like my brain was frozen." I said, "And you ghosted me for days and tell me now? Were you busy with her all this time?" He said, "No. I needed time to think. I was ashamed." I told him, "Don't bother coming home. Stay with her or your mom until I find a place, then I don't want to ever see you again." He said I'm being selfish, hormonal, and overreacting to one mistake. He said he took responsibility, owned his mistake, and will do anything to prove it to me. Am I overrating for not even considering this for the sake of the baby? My best friend says we should try counseling and give him one last chance, but I'm just so upset I can't even think. Update. I sent a quick message to his friend and the bridesmaid he slept with. I told them that Kyle had admitted about his hookup and says it was a one-time thing. But I'm wondering if there is more to the story that you like to share. They both blocked me. Then all his friends blocked me on social media. Last night, late, he sent me a message, I think he was drunk, that I'm an unhinged lunatic. He did the right thing and owned his mistake and confessed to me, yet I acted like a crazy cunt and harassed his friends and their family. He meant the bridesmaid. He said I'm so insecure it's pathetic. He said we are done and he wants me out of his house immediately. He didn't even once mention the baby. I decided not to bother replying. I had no energy and was crying all day. I'm moving back to my family, I decided last night. Early morning tomorrow. My family is happy that I'm moving back, especially my mother. I don't think I'll say goodbye to his mom. I'm not ready to talk to him, and she will make him do that. Update 2. I messaged his mom and told her what happened. I was shocked when she called back immediately and was furious with me. She said I have some nerve twisting the story to covering my cheating ass. I told her I don't understand what she was talking about. Apparently, he told everyone, including his mom, that he checked my social media. He had all my passwords, but I never asked any of his. I have changed them all now. And found out I was having an affair with a coworker and was trying to trick him to raise my affair baby. I told her most of my team work virtually, so this makes no sense. I also have maybe 25 followers on my Instagram, and most of them are my family from back home. I also have a rule to never add any of my coworkers on social media, because I rather keep my personal life and professional life separate. She said her son found out when he was alone in Mexico, and now he is heartbroken. Then went on and on about how could I do that to him and stuff. I kept explaining, but she wasn't listening. I was so upset I told her that I'm done arguing and hung up. I'm done with this man and his lies. He just makes up lies and blames me for it. I can't do this anymore. I submitted time off to my boss. She is amazing. And we'll be settling for the next few weeks. Looking forward to the new chapter of my life without him.
AITAH for crying when my boyfriend let his best friend's wife alter the dish I made for dinner. My boyfriend, 28M, and I, 22F, met at work 2 years ago. Technically, I was working part-time during undergrad, and he was a customer, but after a couple of months, we started going out. I really love this man, and nothing has happened on this scale before, so I'm very confused about it. My boyfriend has a very tight group of friends. I am well acquainted with them and their girlfriends. One of them, Dave, just is married to Ellie, fake names. Ellie is an excellent cook and often hosts dinners, and everyone brings a dessert to those dinners. I am the youngest in the group, so most times they brush off my requests for contributing or bringing in a dessert. However, the last time I asked Dave and Ellie if they wanted anything extra like wine or some sweet dish for dinner, they said I could bring one of those sweet dishes I make for my boyfriend. I'm Indian. And even though I can't cook as well as my mom, and I'm well in a different country for studies, I called my mom up and had her teach me properly how to make a specific Bengali sweet, which is my favorite. I had my friends taste it, and they said it was great. My boyfriend ate some and said it was excellent. Except last night, I greeted Ellie and kept the dish in the kitchen. When the food was brought out and my boyfriend told everyone I made it, I saw that someone had added cinnamon powder to the sweet. You never have the sweet with cinnamon powder? The dessert tasted like cinnamon, and I felt horrible. Though everyone said thank you and it was good, I think my face gave it away. And my boyfriend took me aside and said that Ellie had told him that my sweet looked too white and thought some cinnamon might bring some color into it. I don't know. I just felt awful, and I started to tear up. My boyfriend then defended Ellie and said that his friends already think I'm a child and not make a big deal of this, and we will talk about it. I told him Ellie asked him first. Couldn't he have told her not to add cinnamon to the sweet? He told me he didn't think it was a big deal and asked me to drop the topic on the way home. I didn't text him goodnight, and this morning he said he was sorry and said my crying made him feel like an awful person. I don't know. Now I think I overreacted. AITA, Ellie saw this post. My boyfriend texted me to see if it was me. I said yes. He said we needed to talk. For safety purposes, my best friend will be here. Update. He said he needed space from the relationship. I think with the way this post blew up and what happened because of a post, I should clear up some things. I never asked if I should leave my boyfriend for this. I asked if this was an overreaction, my crying. But having thousands of people tell me this was racially charged, Ellie wanted power, my BF is shitty, etc., my brain went haywire. BF called yesterday, and when I got there, his house, with my best friend, Dave and Ellie were there. Ellie was crying, and Dave looked really pissed at me. My BF told me to sit down, and Dave started with, how could I make a post that most of the people in the dinner party would recognize and know and could shame Ellie and my BF? My boyfriend was silent and wouldn't even look at me and was only shaking his head. It felt like I was a kid, being scolded by my parents with my elder sibling disappointed in my actions. That is what I felt, and it looked. I admit it was very spineless of me, but Dave went on for like a minute, and I was just looking at my BF waiting for him to defend me. I asked Ellie why would she alter my dish after telling me to bring an Indian dish. She said she thought Indian food would be brown. This woman has more Indian friends than me, and she thinks Indian food is brown. She grew up in the UK, and I felt so defeated. The comments, my friends, and people around me telling me his friends came first to him, not me. He said he didn't think the sweet was a big deal. I told him I would never let my friend alter something he spent 3 days learning, getting people to taste it, and got his mom involved in. He saw I put a lot of effort into it, so why let her alter it? Why couldn't he ask me? Ellie started to cry and say that she wasn't being racist and she wouldn't know that I put effort into it, and now she couldn't host dinners again. I said I used fake names, so why does it matter? Unless she and Dave went around telling people. BF told me he didn't expect this from me. My best friend piped up that he expected that my BF would have a effing spine, so I guess they were both disappointed. My now ex BF told me, in front of Dave and Ellie, that he needs some space. I told him to get lost. I don't know what my best friend said to him after that, considering I left BF's flat. He just looked 100% on Dave and Ellie's side and acted like I was the one with the problem when she caused me hurt.
I'm about to ruin my best friend's life, and I don't feel remorse. My soon-to-be ex-best friend and I have been friends since middle school. We know everything about each other. Our families are basically one big family now. You get the idea. Like I said, we tell each other everything. Recently, she came to me telling me she's been having an affair for about 4 months with her superior at her new job. She started about a year ago. She told me not out of guilt, but to brag about the dream vacation she's going on with her AP disguised as a work trip. She asked me to cover for her if her husband asks if we've been in contact because she's planning on going black for that week, so he would have no way of finding out. Side note. We've both known her husband since high school. They are high school lovers, so they've been together for almost 15 years. Her husband is one of the most honest, hardworking, genuine people I know. He, of course, took everything she said about working late and the business trip at face value because he trusts her more than he trusts himself. I told her I would not be covering for her, and to get out of my house because I couldn't even look at her right now. Later, I told my husband everything that happened, and he was just as shocked and disgusted. Her husband is basically his best friend now, so he, of course, has a lot of loyalty to him as well. My husband pointed out something I didn't even think of: our security camera. It caught everything. We plan on going to her husband tonight with the proof. It will be up to him to do what he wishes with it. But he deserves to know. Secondly, we're taking this to her job. As far as I know, fraternization of any kind is prohibited at her workplace. She was also promoted once by this same supervisor, so this could be seen as favoritism. Our guess is that they will both be fired. Finally, I'm going to send a snippet of her admitting the affair to all of her family, including mine. As I said, our families are very intertwined, so I will easily be able to contact the majority of her family. I'm not going to give her a chance to spin this against me or her husband. Some may think this is harsh, but I wholeheartedly disagree with that. She's doing AITA. I decided to take the advice of some of the commenters and leave it up to her, STBX, to decide to go nuclear or not. As some of you pointed out, he may decide to stay with her, and going nuclear would ruin his life in turn. The other reason is going nuclear and making her lose her job could affect the outcome of the divorce. We still plan to tell him, but we have decided against the other two options for now. I'm going to let STBX know if she tries to pin this on either of us or tells anyone a single lie. I will do a 180 and go nuclear. I will not be seen as a villain for a situation I didn't even ask to be in the first place. She was the one who thought it would be smart to tell her monogamous friend with traditional values that she's cheating on her spouse. She can lie in her bed. Small update. I decided to take the advice of a few people and reach out to Alyssa before I went to her husband. I recorded the conversation and let her know I was for my safety. She seemed still extremely nonchalant about the whole thing. I told her I was worried for her, and even for her, this was very out of character behavior. Long story short, she's felt very weak and unbalanced in her and Noah's marriage. For context, Noah went to a trade school and makes very good money, while up until her promotion, Alyssa was making slightly more than minimum wage. She has recently been reading up on some anti-traditional values, and the women in those forums attacked her for making less than her husband. She then explained that she noticed her supervisor was trying to flirt with her, and her internet friends told her to run with it and use him to get higher up. She of course did, but admitted she'd become emotionally attached to him as well. All in all, she admitted she doesn't really regret the affair, because it helped with her career, and she found love. I told her she had the option to tell Noah the truth before me, but hubby and I were coming over tonight with the video of her admitting the affair, so she wouldn't be able to sway it in her favor. Again, she very nonchalantly said, "Okay," and hung up on me. I don't know what the heck is going on. I can't tell if she's having some sort of psychosis or she's literally just so detached from her marriage that she doesn't care what happens. Hubby and I still plan on going to Noah tonight, but I'm honestly intrigued to see that she says anything at all. Update. Apologize for not having time last night. We were obviously busy. I took a lot of people's advice and decided not to go nuclear. As many people said, at the end of the day, it's not my circus. The decision should be left up to the wronged party, and that is Noah. I also decided to reach out to Alyssa before telling Noah, and decided to give her a chance to confess to Noah herself. After I talked to her, I was legit thinking about reaching out to her parents about medical help because she was so unbothered and so non-remorseful about the affair that I thought she was having some sort of mental break or psychosis. Yeah, Alyssa's always been the kind to find loopholes or ways ahead, but cheating on your spouse of almost 2 decades for financial gain, it's not normal. If you didn't see my small update, the whole reason Alyssa started the affair was to get the promotion at work. It evolved into an emotional affair. Eventually, though, she admitted that her new friends from some feminism forums and Facebook groups told her she wasn't as valuable if she was making significantly less than her spouse. Something I learned she's been more insecure about than she's been telling people. They also told her that using a man isn't cheating. As long as there's no emotional attachment, she's just being a girl boss. She admitted she couldn't separate her feelings from the intimate aspect and started going on regular dates and vacations, and eventually they started calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend. The AP knows she's married, but was told they were on the verge of separation. My hubby and I arrived at Noah and Alyssa's with some booze and some dinner, and by the time we were there, Noah had already gone through a bottle of wine. Surprisingly, Alyssa did confess to Noah about the affair. He told us it was extremely non-apologetic, though she sat him down and told him that she wasn't going on a business trip this week. She was going on a vacation with her boyfriend Noah, being the clueless and loyal person he is, thought he meant to say husband, and was so excited. He asked if they're going to Italy like that planned for, and Alyssa just stared at him. She repeated, "With my boyfriend." It took a few minutes, but it finally sunk in. He told us it wasn't pretty after that and said he embarrassingly got on his knees and begged her to fix everything. She yelled for a bit, but then just stonewalled him again. She was already packed to leave and just left him there, sobbing. She turned off her location, which both Noah and I were a part of her family on the app, and we have no idea where she went. We assume she went to her AP's house because if she had gone home with 2 suitcases, her mother would have reached out to Noah immediately. She sees him as a son. We sat down with Noah and said we had video and audio proof of Alyssa exposing and explaining the affair, and we will send them to him in case he needs them. I explained to him that in a moment of blind rage, I was planning on going scorched earth and telling everyone. But once I calmed down and looked at this rationally, I realized that wasn't the right thing to do. The only person going full nuclear would hurt was him, because Alyssa obviously doesn't care anymore. As I suspected, the idea of reconciliation is still on his mind, but he doesn't see it happening. In order to reconcile, both parties must admit fault and want to reconcile. Alyssa clearly doesn't. We've gotten him in contact with a friend of my hubby who agrees to help him, pro bono, until the divorce shows results. I can tell he's still hesitant about going forward with divorce, but he knows he also can't force Alyssa to stay. As comments have suggested, this is where we bow out. We're obviously going to continue to support Noah, but it's not our situation to handle. It's his. If there's any future updates, I'll OFC ask Noah first, but you'll be the second to know. Thanks for being so supportive and helpful. It made me realize that how Noah handles his life and his marriage is his responsibility, not mine. Update 2. Well, I didn't expect to be back so soon, but the last week has been basically a speed run of terrible events. This will probably be my last update, so feel free to consider this the conclusion of the events. Everything bad that could have happened. The past 2 days specifically have been absolutely horrible. Sorry if this is all over the place, I'm still all over the place. So IDK if it was the day she left or the day after, but Alyssa and AP went on their vacation. The only reason I know of because she posted pictures all over social media of her. and AP, she had absolutely no shame. It was very clear that even if she wasn't divorced, this was her new boyfriend, which of course notified her family of the issues. Noah's phone was blowing up with apologies, accusations, everything you could think of Noah being the people pleaser. He has decided to tell her family they were on a mutual break instead of telling everybody she cheated. And that was the AP. Alyssa's mom fortunately didn't believe him and came to me. I didn't hold back. I told her that she's been cheating on Noah for months and that she recently bragged to me about her sugar daddy, AP. And that's the only reason she's come clean to Noah, Alyssa's mom. Then dropped a bomb on me that even I didn't know Alyssa is a serial cheater. Her mom said in high school, Alyssa would bring boys home under the guise of school projects or sports-related things, but she caught Alyssa kissing 2 different boys. Keep in mind she was dating Noah all this time. She said she didn't think much of it and just chalked it up to being a crazy hormonal teenager. She also said she never expected her to marry her high school boyfriend, and by the time they were married, she figured Alyssa had stopped doing all this stuff. Neither her nor I have no idea if she's done anything like that since high school through to the present, but I'm not interested in digging further into it. This just explains why Alyssa was just so nonchalant about cheating, because apparently she has just always done it. I'm guessing her girl boss friends awoke something inside her, and she remembered how easily and nonchalantly she would cheat, and it inspired to just do it again? I don't know. I'll be honest. I kind of yelled at her mother something I'm not proud of. Like I've said in previous posts, Alyssa's mom is basically my mom, so formalities and everything aren't something I think about when I talk to her, so I freaked out and told her she set Noah up for this kind of life when he could have found somebody 10 times better. She took it like a champ and just let me vent until I was calm again. I apologized for yelling, but calmly said, "You and I both know Noah deserved better. You should have said something before he got married to her." She agreed, but said it's too late now to focus on that, and that the real issue at this time was supporting Noah. I told her if she wanted to support Noah, she could have told him his fiancé was a cheater 10 years ago, and hung up on her. I've since talked to her, we're fine, but I was just too mad at her in the moment. Next thing that happened was that the photos got back to a colleague, and both of them were out a job before their vacation was even over. As I assumed their workplace was extremely upset and did consider Alyssa getting the promotion favoritism, and they were both let go. Noah told me there was at least 3-hour complaints about them, so it was a no-brainer. Of course, the beautiful relationship Alyssa and her AP had turned sour as soon as he learned he was let go from his 6-figure job because of her. He was so pissed he even canceled Alyssa's plane ticket home out of spite and planned to leave her stranded there. This is where all of you will be disappointed, and so am I, but Noah immediately forgave her, bought her a ticket, and moved her back in. She told him it was just a huge mistake, and seeing how her AP treated her made her realize what she could have lost. It's obviously all BS to me and hubby, but you already know Noah ate that shit up. He's told us that he's urging her to go to couples counseling. But of course, it's not an ultimatum. So basically, she just got to have her cake and eat it with no consequences. We told Noah previously and reminded him that if he decided to take Alyssa back, we'd be going, at the very least, low contact. We kept to our word and have completely blocked Alyssa and have Noah unblocked, but don't plan to engage in small talk or invitations to stuff. We refuse to be like him and just act like this never happened, because that's not normal. He understood, but told us he has to stand by the vows he made to his wife, which we both understand to an extent, and wished him well. So, yep, Alyssa got to sleep with another man, go on a nice vacation, lose her job, and still gets a bed and a husband to come home to all's well. That ends well. I don't know how to feel about this. Like, if they want to live their fucked up, broken marriage life, that's their choice. I'm not even mad anymore, just drained. I'm almost glad it's over now, because I don't know if I could deal with this for months on end. I knew this was going to happen eventually. It's just who Noah is. But it feels just as idiotic as it sounds, IDK. I'm just rambling at this point. I'm glad we decided to step back, because honestly, both of them have very clear psychological issues that needs to be addressed with a professional, but neither of them will ever do that. I'd rather be rid of people like this. Sorry if I'm being blunt or mean, but at the end of the day, both of them have issues I didn't sign up to deal with. I don't need this kind of stress while hubby and I are trying for kids, so yeah, I guess this is it.
Slight chance. My 39M pregnant wife, 38F, had an affair. Should I ask for a paternity test or wait? My wife, 38F, and I, 39M, have been together for 12 years. I don't know how to describe it other than calling it the perfect relationship. I think in 12 years, we've only ever gotten to the point of really raising our voices at one another, maybe 2 or 3 times. We do everything together, but always have never had issues allowing each other to lead our own lives and follow our own interests. We bought a house where we both have good, high-paying jobs that have great work-life balance. Basically, it's been everything short of perfect. We've been trying for 2 years to get pregnant, and it hadn't been happening. We were just about to start the fertility stuff when I came home from a work trip. And guess what? She's pregnant. I had this weird instant thought of, wait, I thought we didn't try during the week last month because of the fertility testing, but I couldn't remember exactly because, to be honest, we were busy at it. So I just assumed I misremembered. Now I travel around the country pretty regularly for work. Other than COVID, I've been on the road as much as 40 weeks a year sometimes. Since COVID, it's been less, but still more than a week a month. Over the last 4-5 years, my wife has gotten very friendly with a guy she works with. Let's call him Matt. Matt is slightly younger, I think 34, M or so. I know him, he's married. I know his wife. They've worked together for, I think, 7 years or so. He's always been around him, and I have been friendly. Have I ever thought something was happening? No, but I've always thought you'd be a fool to not think there's even a 1% chance your spouse would go outside the relationship. Maybe I'm naive, but I've always seen it as a safeguard to not take my wife or any other partner in the past for granted. She's never given me a reason to think she'd do that, but anything is possible. So about a month ago, I'm out of state for work and she's at home. I ask her what she's doing earlier in the day and she says Matt is coming by for dinner. Not out of the ordinary. Matt comes by from time to time, sometimes with his wife, sometimes without, sometimes when I'm not there. I don't think much of it. We have a security system which includes cameras, both inside and outside of the house, which we installed after an unrelated incident a few years ago. They record and are live accessible by both her and I. I often use those cameras to check on the dog when I or both of us are away, as the rest of the system is monitored by a company. In case of an alarm going off, she knows. I check those cameras. There's a system installed where I can talk through them. I'll mess with my wife and she will with me on them if either of us are out of town. She travels for work as well, but far less than I do. Point is, it's known that I check them often when I'm not at home. So I turn on the camera and I see my 4 months pregnant wife lying on the floor on her side with Matt sitting straddling her legs and using a foam roller to massage her hips. So I'm like, okay, what the fuck is this? I start rewinding through the footage and they are eating and talking normally, but then they get on the couch and get under the same blanket. Now, they are feet to feet, but that couch isn't that big. Then they move to the floor, and that's when I logged in. Anyway, I text her. I'm still watching the cameras. They both look like deer in headlights, and he very quickly leaves. We get into an argument. She isn't mad at me accusing her, but she's adamant that nothing has or ever would happen, and that what I saw was innocent. And she was complaining about being in pain from the pregnancy, which I know is true. She's already having some issues with back pain, etc. The biggest point of that discussion was, I asked, if I were there, would you two have been comfortable doing any of that in front of me? And she reluctantly admitted, no, probably not. I told her I didn't want to talk after that, and we talked when I got home 3 days later. That's when it hit me. What if my weird gut moment feeling about her telling me she was finally pregnant was this? What if my 1% happened and this is not my child we are having? Now, it eats away at me while I'm at a hotel, alone, 1,000 miles away, for 3 days. I reconcile with myself that I think it's less likely than more likely that something between them has happened. But basically my 1% just jumped to 10%, 20% maybe. I get home and she's on eggshells and doesn't mention it. I kind of wait to see what she's going to do. 2 days later, she finally brings it up and breaks down, swears nothing has happened. She would never, doesn't do anything over the top to try and prove anything, which I took as a good sign. But anyway, we talk out the issue and everything to a point of at least moving forward for now. I'm still coping and dealing with it, figuring out how to retrust after all this time. I'm getting more and more understanding of the fact that they are friends. They've been friends for so long. Maybe he has intentions, but I don't see her having any, and I've never really picked up on it. And I've spent time around both of them together many, many times and never caught anything. So the thing that is destroying me right now is if I'm wrong and something did happen, while I can figure out how to deal with that, what if that child isn't mine? In the argument and few long conversations we've had about the situation since I've never brought that up and she's not mentioned it, mostly because I don't want to make the situation worse and crush her if, in fact, she's telling the truth, which I mostly believe. The only thing I can think to do at this point is to wait until the baby is born and immediately order a paternity test in secret. Should I do that? Should I tell her and have it dealt with? Now, if you're a woman in her shoes and you're telling the truth, would that destroy you or your view of me? If you're lying, what would you do if I asked? I don't want to ask a super vague question, but what do I do? TLDR, very small chance my wife of 12 YRs had an affair and she's 4 months pregnant and I can't bring myself to ask for a paternity test for fear of crushing her. If nothing actually happened, but I am planning on doing it in secret when the baby comes. What do I do? Update. So many comments. Thank you, everyone. More than I can address directly, but I'm going to keep reading a few things. 1, stop DMing me about this. Thanks. 2, some have made some good points about addressing it now rather than later. And that's something that I'm considering more than I was before. Thank you. 3, to those focused only on my relationship. I get it, but that's not what I'm focused on. We've been talking about it a lot. My wife and I are pretty open people with each other. I'm not saying I'm convinced nothing happened, but I'm more focused on paternity right now. 4, if I need to track spy on life. 360, my wife, then this relationship is over already. That's not the relationship we have and not one that I ever want. And in my opinion, not one anyone should ever have. We are working on rebuilding trust. As I said in this long-winded post, my default of 1% possibility went up to 10% or so. Trust me, I'm taking my relationship seriously. But to those I've said this to already, if the kid isn't mine, then there's no longer any conversation to have. 5, I've already had this discussion with my lawyer. I don't live in a state where the birth certificate stuff will be an issue. If I have paperwork that this child isn't mine, then divorce isn't going to be much of an issue. Both of us are in an independent financial situation where it won't matter much. Regardless, I'll keep up with this post as long as I can and post an update when and if anything gets resolved. Update. So she was out of state on a business trip until late last night. It's Friday, so she worked from home in our kitchen. So I asked to talk and brought it up and asked for a test. She immediately said yes and said there's zero doubt and nothing that she'd even have a second to worry about, but she has no problem doing it now. The only caveat I left it with is if it's invasive at all per our doctors, then I'm okay waiting until it's low risk. I'm not a doctor. No clue what they'd have to do it now. So not sure when we are, but she's aware and we are getting one. It was a decent and longer conversation. We are currently sitting together getting lunch. She's got no clue. I did this on Reddit, hence the new account because she is on here somewhere. Thank you everyone for your help and opinions. A bunch of you made me realize that we are already really open about everything. And if nothing happened, then she wouldn't worry about getting one. I was more worried about her health and adding some insane level of stress if it was an issue, as she's an at-risk pregnancy, and it took so long for us to get pregnant. Update. Hi folks. So I haven't been touching this account at all, as I was mostly bombarded by people telling me I'm an AI wishing my wife a miscarriage, claiming she's going to get a secret abortion to save herself, or that I'm a clown for not keeping it real and destroying someone else's marriage over speculation only. Here's where we are at. Yes, my wife is still very much pregnant. She's in the hard to pick things up off the floor stage. She's due in 8 weeks. Holy shit. 6 weeks, actually. Just looked at the calendar. We're getting weekly ultrasounds at this point. He's already about 5 pounds and has a big old head. Her and I had some very long direct conversations about everything. She is adamant that nothing has ever happened and nothing ever would. For a while, she was pretty upset with herself for causing this and causing my feelings of doubt. I've done my best to remedy that, as I've got to keep stress off her as much as possible right now, but it will for sure be revisited after the birth. As I've been saying the entire time, I'm really only worried about the child and the birth going well, etc. well. Mostly, maybe not only the only thing we still really disagree on is I thought he was getting too close because he had developed feelings or was getting attention that he wasn't getting elsewhere, or maybe, etc. She doesn't see it that way, but has also said it's possible. But if so, she was blind to it. I told her I wanted a paternity test, and she immediately agreed to it and said no problem at all. My only stipulation was that it couldn't be medically risky or stress-inducing at all, as she's a high-risk pregnancy. We both spoke to her doctors about it, and they basically told us that our only option was to go to the courthouse because they wouldn't do one without the law involved, which we both thought was ridiculous. Her doctor was a bit thrown off by it. I didn't press very hard. It was honestly her pretty much demanding it. I knew there were other options. I looked into those other options and ultimately decided to wait until the birth. And I have a lab already set up to do it, ready to go. I'm 95% sure it's unnecessary, but I'm still getting one for my peace of mind, and mostly so that nothing will come between me and my child. For those of you that have left me messages of support that I didn't get back to, thank you. I'm going to spend some time going through them tonight before I run off again. For those of you who've left messages that think I should be acting like a 17-year-old high school student and either getting violent, purposely cheating on my wife to prove a point, or other childish trash, thanks for the entertainment. At least stop watching TLC and TikTok. That dumbass drama ain't the way, kiddos. And to the one person who suggested I cause an accident with my wife, I hope you end up behind bars someday. It's really likely I'm not going to come back here after tonight until after I get the results from the lab. So if you're really still interested in the results, come back in 1.5-2 months, I've been told. The results take about 48 hours once submitted. I'll give you your Maury moment, then update. Quick update today is 9/14. We just got an induction date scheduled on the 26th. Yup date. 9/29, 1 M. Baby boy is here. Born 9/27, 7 pounds, 10 ounces. He had what the doctors in the OR said the biggest meconium they've seen in a while on the table. So it was likely he was about 8 pounds when he was born. Labor was induced early morning. On the 26th, labor was like 30 hours pushed for like 3 HRS. No progress, ended up in a C-section. He's perfectly healthy and kind of a tank. I was almost a 10 pounds baby. Mom is dealing with recovery and not having a fun time, but we are getting there. We are being discharged on Tuesday. They tell us we live about 2 miles from the hospital, so I've been going back to the house to shower and sneak in like an hour or two, nap a couple times. Otherwise, I've been here the entire time. As far as paternity, just out of all that entails, with the birth of a newborn and recovery, and honestly, a bit of embarrassment, we haven't started the test, but it's set up and ready to start on Tuesday when we get out of here. So I'll give a final update after the results come back. So maybe another week to 10 days. My honest opinion after looking at this kid is he is mine. Matt and I are physically very opposite. Different heritages. I'm 6', 240 pounds. He's probably 5'8", 175 to 180 pounds. I've always held the belief that babies all generically look the same other than obvious ancestral differences. But yes, this moose of a baby has some obvious traits that would only come from me. Still doing the test, but I'm very much not worried about it. I'll make a new post when I get the results back. Final update are in October 10th, 2024. TLDR, child is mine. The baby is as healthy as could be so far. Mom, on the other hand, has been having issues. Baby was born on 9/27. Labor was 30 hours ending in a C section, 7 pounds, 10 ounces. Mom didn't do so well. We were supposed to be in for 4 days. Ended up being 8 days. Mom has been back to the hospital twice since I'm currently sitting in the car with the little guy because Mom's in the emergency room right now. She is making progress, but still having a hard time with a few things. As I mentioned before, she has some pre-existing issues that we knew would make this hard, but there have been a few hurdles, but we are getting over them together. As far as paternity, the results came back this morning, greater than 99.9999 match. That I am the father, I did pretty much already know this, but now there is no question, and I can put it behind me. My wife and I have had long conversations about all this leading up to the birth, especially around the time of the original post when all this started. We are in a good place, and while it's always going to be there, we both have things to work on, communication-wise, that came from all this. I did also see Matt today. That's been settled. I'm pretty satisfied that what I saw was it, and there wasn't anything else beyond that, and it was a friend helping her with pain, the same way I do. I do want to thank everyone who left a message or DM'd me, good or bad comments. Thank you. Talking to the void, and all you strangers helped me wait this out. I appreciate it. I'm going to go enjoy my son's company now. Thank you again.
Am I the asshole for telling my mom it wasn't cute or funny to dress me as a hot dog instead of a princess? So there's this new Target commercial going around where a little girl dresses as a hot dog, and it came on while my family was watching a scary movie. I 20 home from college for the weekend and brought my boyfriend, and my mother decided it would be hilarious to mention that she'd made me a hot dog costume as a kid. Except the way she told the story, it was my request. She said that all the girls wanted to be Disney princesses, but I had asked to be a hot dog, and so she'd gone out of her way to make me that costume. This is not what happened, and I said as much. What actually happened is that I wanted to be Snow White, and had told everyone, including the teachers, that I was going to be Snow White. I was obsessed with that movie as a kid, to the point where I would actually get invested in doing chores because I was cleaning up just like Snow White. My dad and I would watch that movie all the time, and I was very excited to be Snow White for Halloween, especially because my ballet studio was doing a special princess dance for Halloween, and we'd all signed up for special princess slots. And I'd shown up early with my dad the week before, so I could get to be Snow White. My mother decided that she wanted to be quirky, and that Snow White was a bad role model after I got in trouble for trying to cook dinner for my family. I was about 8, and I tried to make hot dogs like how she made food for the dwarves in the movie, and I made a mess. My mom surprised me on the day of with this crappy hot dog suit, and told me if I didn't wear it, she'd never let me watch Snow White again. She took a million pictures. The other girls teased me for months, and it was one of the most humiliating moments of my childhood. I told the real story, and mentioned that I got through the day by pretending that she was the evil queen making me dress in rags, but the rags happened to be a garbage meat costume. She got really quiet after that, and after we left, my brother says she was crying and looking at the pictures from that Halloween. I didn't want to make my mom cry, but it's a shitty memory for me. And it felt like she was trying to humiliate me all over again in front of my boyfriend.